Here.
Mr. D'Lo,
Present.
Ms. Good. Present. Mr. Hyman.
Present.
Ms. Lauren Kandusky. Present. Ms. McKean. Present. Mr. Snowden.
Here.
Ms. Stetler. Here. Mayor Hamilton.
Present.
Chief Maggar.
Here.
Solicitor Fidelis.
Here. Okay, I need an action to approve the December 10th, 2024 council meeting minutes. Thank you. Can I get a second, please? Thank you, Boro. Any questions or comments?
December 10th?
January.
Oh,
It
I have one.
should say January.
Okay.
It says December. That's all right.
Mine says January. I don't know.
Mine does.
Okay. I have one question about the notes identifying the public attendees. Should Sandy Egley be included in the list of public attendees? She's
Yes.
noted as speaking, but is not in the original list.
Okay. So it's just who signed it.
Got it. Okay, thanks. That's it.
Okay. Okay, moving forward with the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Treasurer's report?
So the treasurer's report is in your packets. We are working on the report that we discussed in the working session, and we'll be ready to share that in the next working session. So otherwise, are there any questions from anybody on the treasurer's report as it stands today? You can see where we are in terms of the overall budget and the budget by line item for the last 13 months. And then the profit and losses behind that.
In the past, we've had a summary of things kind of, I think we were talking about before. I don't know if this is what you were talking about. I think you were talking about a quarterly thing. Is that correct? But
We're gonna do it monthly, we've
Monthly,
decided, and it'll be a summary that is in a, sort of attaches onto this 13-month treasurer's account balances, and it will show unexpected expenses. And then also we'll have a separate report that shows projected out revenue for the pool house. Both revenue bookings by month over the looking forward, so we can also see what potential revenue we have coming in. Yeah, so that, we just met with Andy today and got that kind of all aligned, and we should have that for the next working session. Yeah, you got it.
Any others? Thank you. Review invoices and authorization to pay the bills. Any motion for that, please? Thank you. Can I get a second? Ms. Kandusky. Thank you. Any questions or comments? All right, moving forward with the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Action carries. At this time, members of the public that are willing to speak, 3 minutes. Please stand, state your name and the ward you reside in. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jim Woolley. I just wanted to compliment our road department for keeping the roads very clean through all this snow. Good job.
Thank you.
My name is Janet Shute, and I am the Beaver Boro tax collector. I'm here tonight. I have 3 minutes. I'm going to go fast here. I'm here tonight because you're finalizing the salary for this position for the next 4 years. Before you make your decision, I was hoping you would take into consideration the additional information that I've provided you. A lot of people think this position is just sending out bills and then depositing the money. I have you should have in front of you the job description that I wrote up. As you can see, there's a whole lot more involved in job responsibilities and time. It's not just a part-time job. There are many other aspects to this role, including key tasks that materially impact the tax revenue Beaver receives and ensures our taxpayers have a fair chance to decrease their tax burden by paying in discount. I'm respectfully requesting you consider the following. Because of the reassessment, the value of 1 mil has changed from $50,000 to $500,000. I'm currently paid on a percentage basis, which under these new circumstances, you are changing the calculation to avoid paying me a substantial increase in salary. Let me first say, whatever you decide, I hope you take into consideration the savings that the borough will realize by my closing the tax office in the Huntington Bank building this year. This will save the borough $6,000 a year in expenses, which could also offset any salary increase. From what I understand, you want to go to a pay-by-parcel system. I know you've researched other areas, like Brighton Township in the area. For a little history, there's never been a specific pay raise for the Beaver tax collector. As it stood for the history of the position, increases in salary would only occur when millage was increased because salary is paid as a percentage of collections. Although there have been years where Beaver did not raise taxes or even reduce them, in general there would be a small increase over the 4-year term as millage would go up at least once during those years. On the other hand, if you decide to change to a pay-by-parcel, because Beaver is landlocked, the possibility of adding additional parcels is very limited and rare, other than the jail thing that's, the property there, that they're adding some properties there. But there's really minimal to zero increase over the 4-year term. Other districts, one difference really is the other districts can add parcels all the time because they're adding developments or different subdivisions. Paying on a percentage basis in Beaver offsets this drawback because if the millage is increased, the yearly salary is increased. This salary is in place for 4 years, so it won't be revisited for another 4 years. Personally, I would strongly prefer that you continue with the percentage basis, but if you do choose to go with the by-parcel payment, I'm requesting that in years 2, 3, and 4, that you include a cost of living increase as other municipalities and schools do. The scope of this tax collector role has expanded way more than the pay for this position, particularly in the past 2 or 3 years. First and foremost, due to the reassessment issues, which have not been totally resolved yet. The reassessment brought so many data governance and revision tasks, in addition to causing frustration and anger among the taxpayers. It's been really a big source of extra work over the past few years, on top of software changes, millage increases, and in prior years, difficulties during the COVID environment. I take this job very seriously, and I want to provide the best service to the community. I'm the face of property taxes here in Beaver. I don't set the millage, I don't make the rules, but I enforce the rules and collect the monies. Not only do I make sure that taxpayers pay the correct amount and their payments in escrow go smoothly, I am the one they call to vent to. I listen to those on fixed incomes upset that they will not be able to keep their homes, and all those who just want to complain. It's not a glamorous job. I'm here to help the residents as they pay their hard-earned money to have the privilege to live in this great community. The taxpayers of Beaver deserve an informed, competent, and appropriately paid tax collector. I'm hoping and requesting that you put my salary at $50,000 for this position. Thank you.
I do want to say, I want to thank you for the work that you do.
Well, thank you, I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
Two quick questions for you, just so I can think about the request. On average, what would you say is the number of hours per week that you work on Beaver Boro tax collection?
I would say it varies sometimes, obviously during different times of the year. The office hours that I had were like I would have 3 days a week and 2-hour increments, but that didn't reflect the work that I do outside of that. I'm in the office every day. When I was at the Huntington Bank building, it's every day. So I'm at least when I send out the bills, I'm at full-time at 40 to 50 hours a week. More than that, I know. That's my daughter. She's watching me work.
I did not see her during those time periods.
Yeah. So during like busy time or whatever, I'm probably 50 hours a week.
50 to 60.
50,
But
60.
on average across the year, 10 hours a week?
Well, it's more than that.
Oh,
Much
at
more than that.
minimum, probably 20 a week.
20 to 30 hours a week.
Thank you. And are you, is your term coming up? Are
Yes.
you running again?
Yes,
And how long have you had, I should know this, but how long have you had the role?
8 years.
8 years. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Ron Stidman, Taylor Avenue. I noticed on the agenda that there's going to be a request to purchase tasers. And I don't know if there's been any discussion regarding how they've been used in the past and whether or not the ones we have now can be upgraded. I'm not sure exactly what that discussion has been. I was ill. So if it took place earlier, I apologize. But the idea of spending $100,000 over the next 5 years for tasers, it would be, I think, responsible to explain why it is that they're necessary. That's, and I would wait till after the discussion, but I'm not allowed to talk.
Yeah, sure. It's a good question. We had some discussion, and so the tasers, we started carrying the tasers back in 07, 08, and the first set of tasers, we got 8 years and 7 months out of them. The second set, which we're currently carrying right now, those were purchased in 2017. So they're pushing, once March hits, they're going to be pushing 9 years old. The service recommended is 5-year turnover, so they're starting to phase out as far as parts. There's 2 more upgrades in between what we currently have, and they're right now, the new ones come out, have a lot more technology. They can fire up to 10 different cartridges within the same unit. Right now, what we have is it fires 1, you miss, or if they have heavy clothing. So we're looking at upgrading for a multitude of reasons, plus the liability of them not working. So it's a tool that the officers need prior to escalating to deadly force. So
How often have they been used in the past?
I didn't hear your question.
How often have they been used in the past?
One was used just 3 days ago in the back here with a pit bull that was attacking another dog, and they couldn't separate it. The officer didn't
In
have it.
total, I mean, over the years, is it 35 times a year, 20 times a year?
Ken does the reporting. He probably could answer that a little better.
Probably anywhere to 50 to 100, depends on what's going on that year. It's important to note that tasers essentially are a less lethal option. That when they came on the market, they replaced impact weapons and pepper spray. When you use an impact weapon, oftentimes you have severe injuries as a result of the use of the baton. Whenever you were to use pepper spray, that's great if you're the person getting attacked and you got to spray someone and run. Pepper spray, whenever you use it and then you attempt to arrest someone, you yourself are being pepper sprayed too, because it's an airborne agent. And trust me, fair-skinned guy like me, it was the worst thing. The tasers have been more effective. Taser International has never lost a lawsuit. You've seen information that someone got killed because they were tased. Every single case with taser, they won the lawsuit, but the media doesn't report that they won it and why they won it. So it's not something that's naturally going to cause a life-threatening injury.
So that there are other companies that...
There's one company that makes Taser International. The tasers that we currently have are a combination of the X26s that were purchased in 2008, in August of 2008, and the X26Ps that were purchased in March of 2017. Both of those are way beyond their useful life cycle, although we've babied them and kept them along, and right now you can still get the parts for them. Problem is, Taser's the only one in the market. They're the only ones that sell these things, and they're stopping servicing of these items. So we're going to have to make this purchase eventually, no matter what. We got a bid, and the bid that we got, because we couldn't commit to it right away, just in a 30-day period, jumped $5,000. So that's why the purchase is on plate this year, and it's not. It was a reallocation of funds. It's not we're paying an extra $100,000 above and beyond our current budget. So, and this was discussed previous during the work session. So, yeah, but they're used quite regularly. You're giving most current. I've been an officer for close to 30 years, so I'm certified in ASP baton, the older PR-24s, pepper spray use. Most officers that come out of academy nowadays are not even certified in those anymore because they're generally not used because there's a slew of other problems like I just gave you a few of them. So tasers have become the standard between physical open hand control and deadly force. So that's your in-between right there. You know, and so they get used for a variety of reasons. And they're a great de-escalator. I can tell you personally, in the time period that I've been a police officer, when I pulled a gun on someone, they have continued to do what they were doing. But when we pulled a taser on them, they've stopped. in almost every instance, because they know more than likely you're pulling the trigger on the taser where they take their chances with the gun. They usually know you're probably not gonna pull the trigger unless they have a gun as well, so.
Yeah.
It's a very effective tool. Just pulling it and not shooting it and pointing it and telling someone to stop, they generally do. And the ones that don't are generally under the influence of some type of drug, which they wouldn't have stopped no matter what you're doing. But it's effective because it locks them up. In order to carry them, the original batch, we had to be shot with them. And the reason that they did that was the belief that if you know how effective the weapon is, and trust me when I say, I was shot actually right where you're standing, and you can't do anything. It interrupts the electrical impulses in your body. So you freeze up, it's a full 5-second jolt unless the guy shuts it off, and then you fall or go to your knees and a guy can get you and cuff you before you continue, or back at a point where you can fight. And listen, once the trigger's off, a lot of times you can't start the fight, but you're so, oh my God, what just happened to me, that it pretty much eliminates the issue. You know, they're very effective, very useful tool, and they save you from a lot of lawsuits. And it could be used for a variety of reasons. So.
And we're also able to utilize five payments interest-free, so it's once a year for 5 years. So we don't have to pay the $100,000 up front.
Yeah.
Ellen Kretschmar, Ward 2. So my argument isn't about the need for the tasers, right? It's the debate about when we had a pedestrian killed in a crosswalk and we had a letter from the school requesting improved safety for the children crossing the road at St. Peter and Paul, that we didn't have the money, right? We were asked to be patient and wait for a grant. So my question to you is, you spent over $1.5 million over last year's budget. And so let's see how we go if you can find some efficiencies and reduce your amount that you are spending on police, and then look into buying tasers, because I also question why this wasn't brought up during the budget discussions. Why wasn't that a priority to say, hey, we know these were bought in 2017, we know their past capacity, why wasn't the conversation then? My other comment is about the reporting. I'm really glad to see that there's a motion to actually have police reporting, because like I've told you before through Right to Know, I've gone to other municipalities and Beaver actually provides Vanport an incident report for their supervisors meetings. So I'm really surprised that that isn't something that would be, you know, a bare minimum of what taxpayers should see if crime's going up or down. And hopefully the police chief would know that on a monthly basis. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Sandy Egley, 1462nd Street. I'm also going to ask about number 2 of the tasers. Have you researched any grant funding for that? I get an email from Elder Bill monthly that there are grants from the DOJ, and there is one that pertains to this section right here, and I'd like to know if you've applied for that.
The answer is yes, and we just got notification back at the end of the year that we didn't receive the grant. That's what prompted us to make the move and reallocate funds within the budget. So Sean Reese and Jim DeGore did work on a grant through the DOJ. Took several months to see if we were awarded, and we got notification November, December timeframe that we weren't awarded. That's when we went to Plan B as to figure out how to fund these.
Thank you.
And just to comment on that, so we talked about this in the last couple of meetings, but this is not above and beyond the budget. We are making a reduction elsewhere in the police budget to fund this for 2025. So we are reallocating funds that were dedicated to replacing old vehicles. We're going to hold on to the vehicles to replace the tasers.
The other thing too, is just one payment, so that's gonna now leave us an additional $80,000 within the police budget that can be used anywhere within the borough to help if any unexpected, because we don't have that money there if something does come up. That was another strategic reason to keep that money aside and not just pay them off, especially with no interest, but also too, if we don't have to use that 80, to help us through December, January, February of 25 into 26 when we hit that lean spot again. That extra would be, so there was a lot of thought that went into trying to figure out how to structure, make it work and stretch it.
So the 80,000 will go into the general fund and will be there for unexpected expenses, or will then carry over if needed or if possible.
Any others? Okay, moving on to council committees, finance.
Where shall we start?
As Amy spoke to that report that we're going to have hopefully at the next meeting, is going to spell out the pool house revenue and the bookings and the projected revenue, and those unforeseen expenses, as we spoke last meeting about, the salt, the taser, the right to nose, and the servers on the cameras also. So that's going to spell all that out. That way it'll be in one spot for everybody to see. We will review every meeting what's in the capital fund, in case somebody didn't see that line item, so we can hopefully see that grow over these next few months to get us out of the danger zone.
Okay. The other thing I can add is that we did have a request into the borough to analyze the property value and the plan for 471 Corporation Street, because that was a conversation that we had around, is that a property that is being managed in a profitable way, and the report is indicating that it is. That we have a roughly net income last year of about $6,100, almost $6,200, and the year prior almost $11,000. So each year there is a profit, a net income on that property. That includes the taking into account the rental income versus school tax, water, sewage, gas, and upkeep. We also looked at the scenario of maintaining a rental, turning it into a parking lot, or selling it. And again, we prefer an ongoing revenue stream versus a one-time cash infusion at this stage. So at this stage, the recommendation is to maintain the rental scenario with an average over the last 4 years of $7,500 in net income versus parking, which would be about $5,000 a year, so that's a loss versus where we're at, or roughly $60,000 one-time infusion if we sell it. So that analysis has been completed, and I'm satisfied and recommending that we maintain it as a rental income at this time.
I thought we paid a lot more for that property.
Paid 130 something.
136.5.
Yep.
And we have one of the realtors in town, Beauvoir and Anderson, looked at it, and they said if we were to sell it, it would be somewhere in the 170, 180 range is about what that house would be on the market for.
Yeah, we have it at 170 on the analysis, so the property would be about 60,000. So thank you to the borough manager and the office for putting this together. I think it's important that we do diligence like this on various things, so if anybody has any questions.
And how are we doing vis-a-vis paying back the loan for the pool house? Because obviously that cash would be helpful in terms of lowering the
So
amount
the
that we're
plan
paying
right-
on the loan.
Yeah, so that's one of the things that I think looking at the revenue out over time that's projected from the pool house will help us with. But we have I believe, Andy, keep me honest here, an annual payment that we have to make on that loan that we have built into the budget currently.
Yeah, that's already built into your budget.
Yep, and then some of the conversations around what we would do with the $80,000 that we just talked about that might be incremental to the police budget at the end of the year would be to pay down that FNB loan, another payment if we could. So I'm doing my best on our side of these conversations to maintain awareness of the FNB loan and paying it down as fast as we can.
Any others? Okay, moving on. General government. No report? Okay, highways?
Under highways, one significant item is that we will be having a meeting next week with Columbia Gas. And the purpose of that meeting is to discuss their plans for digging up and replacing gas lines around town. The reason that's important to highways is because right after that, then we've got to determine what needs to be done for restoration and what our obligations are. And so Columbia Gas has been, I think, a very good partner on this. Over the last few years, they've provided a lot of the funds for restoration of the roads. And we'll see what can be negotiated with Columbia Gas and how we'll be able to then move forward and make sure that everything is properly restored after the replacement of gas lines. Anything else?
No, that's it. I just talked to Dan earlier, along with Rick, and just waiting on the Columbia Gas. I know Rick's been dealing with Columbia Gas on a daily basis, as Dan, and keeping the project moving, and they're gonna be looking at doing some tearing up of the sidewalks on 3rd Street for some of the gas lines, so they're in the process of getting that worked out, the logistics. Rick, I don't want to.
Yeah, the
You
plan
know more than I
is,
do on that.
yeah, the plan is to start the 1st of March with 3rd Street. And we'll know more on the 24th.
The East End Road project, them replacing those bricks was really, it had been a challenge.
They were.
That was a real project. And
When they were taking the bricks out, they were just falling apart in their hands, and they were trying to find light colors, and yeah, it was tough. They were stressed out.
it was a big project, but it's done.
Yeah.
The bricks are done.
Yeah, they're not thrilled on the bricks. They're trying to stay out of the bricks.
They did it.
I know just from walking my dogs by them, two questions for you guys. On the east end, is the apron gonna be fixed? It's very bumpy coming into 2nd Street now.
Yeah, that was one of the, coming out of the train station. That's one of the ones we looked at, and Dan was gonna take a look at. We wanted to wait till the work was done in that area. We didn't want to get the aprons taken care of. We did
Dan, I can speak to that.
Yeah.
Dan Martone, our engineer, addressed that, and that was supposed to have been done a couple years ago, but then in the meantime, this work came up and it just didn't make sense. Well, they dug it all up anyway. So that's why that was deferred. It was gonna be done when we did the one at Taylor Avenue. There was a couple others that were done. Taylor and 2nd, and that was one that was slated to be done.
I think we're gonna try this go around here coming up. Since we're gonna do just smaller projects, we're hoping to do a few other aprons, and that being one of them.
It just gets so much traffic from all the
It is
train
real
stations.
bad.
It is really bad. Okay, and then my second question is relating to the budget, so we always do this, but I'm just conscious and heightening attention on certain things because of the budget situation. As we work through any kind of post-winter repairs, potholes, things like the apron, like the roads, we're having a bad winter. It's gonna take its toll on the roads. It already has. I've seen some potholes where I haven't seen them before. And so we just will make sure that we highlight any of those in unexpected expenses so we can make a smart decision on whether or not we want to invest money in fixing.
So I think I had that conversation with Dan Martone today. We were gonna wait, as Mr. Dilo said, till after the meeting, and Dan really wants to get up into 7th Street, Daly Boulevard area, from Market, but the other one is to finish 5th Street. Like, we got 5th Street done, and now we gotta pick up 5th Street and run it the whole way down, but the street is a lot wider than most of the other ones, that along with 2nd Street, and it's gonna be a pretty hefty price. And I told Dan, let's try to get the aprons and different things, but then, commit to 2026. He'll spec it out and we'll know what that number and budget additional, because we should have the additional funds to be able to do that and do a lot of paving in 26. The Columbia Gas has no plans on going down in that area anytime in the future, so we can start to pay. Mr. Dilo said we've been kind of following Columbia Gas around, cleaning up those messes, but also neglecting other spots in town, so we're gonna have to try to get ahead of it in '26, so hopefully that was, so that falls into what you're saying.
It
It's like
does.
we'll need to come up with a plan for '26 budget.
And the 5-year plan as well, just trying to get out ahead of infrastructure costs, because infrastructure costs are just gonna keep going up and the
Correct.
town's just getting older and older, so.
I don't know if this is a highway question, but is there any plans with that sheer pole in front of, on Third Street in front of Dr. Cronin's office? You know, is there a?
Yeah, there's a-
I'll check with Duke and Mike.
Yeah,
Yeah, I saw that myself.
it's been,
It's been a little while, yeah.
That pole had a street light on
Yeah.
Now it has like 5
Oh,
colors.
I know, it looks
Yeah,
terrible.
yeah,
it. It looks terrible.
a little bit of a.
There's a couple of places in town that Duke County needs to respond to, and there hasn't been any sense of urgency. So we'll stay on top of it.
Speaking of that, on the corner of College and Fifth, they replaced the pole, I bet it's been 2 years.
Yeah.
And the orange cones are there, and there's 2 poles there. So they replaced the pole and the old one's still there. I mean,
I know.
are they?
And on Sharon
The
Road,
cones have been
on
set.
Sharon Road as well.
Yeah.
There's 2 poles there. You have to go off the sidewalk, into the
Right.
street, and then around. I know. I call them every week. So, yeah.
Okay. Any others? All right, public safety, code enforcement.
If the tasers go, that's it, we talked about those extensively, so that's what I have there.
Thank you. Recreation.
Other than highlighting the library soup fundraiser on March 8th at 11 o'clock, we're excited to go again. My children love it, so we'll see you there, Mr. Woolley, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
All right, the reports manager, secretary. Okay.
Should brought up to speed on a couple things. One of the motions before your council tonight is gonna be to extend the MOU out with the poll, so we did meet, like we said, for, other people in attendance, and you weren't here, Sean, but we did, as the mayor wasn't, but I spoke with both of you after. It assured the poll committee that would be brought up, and it appeared as if the, council was going to, go ahead and support that. They were very pleased to hear that we were willing to give them a 2-week. The council was willing to give them a 2-year extension with their new changing around of the different boards. So just wanted to mention that again, because that is one of the motions that's coming up. The other thing too is some discussion with the mayor, because the mayor wasn't here, was brought up on the call volume. So we went ahead and Sergeant McCoy spent a little bit of time. So our call volume, total calls in 2022 was 5,693 total calls. 2023 was 5,792. In 2024, our total calls were 5,863. So those calls do not include the walk-ins that we get at the front desk, doesn't include anything that an officer's out on the road or generates a call or generates a complaint. So these calls actually, the numbers that you were just provided, as an example, and for 2025, we only have 1 month data. The total calls we had for the month of January were 516 calls. Beaver accounted for 357 of those calls. Industry was 80 calls, and Vanport was 79. So we're on pace. Right now, it's higher than it was last January. So at that pace, should increase probably about 5.6%, where we've been anywhere between 1.5% to 2% on the call volume. So again, we have the 3-year averages of these different calls that Ken was able to pull together. And again, we're somewhere in the high 5,000 call, close to 6,000, but it doesn't include, for anybody that's been in here on daylight with the girls at the front desk. Even if you said at the minimum they deal with 10 different things a day, it's probably closer to 20 or 30. But even if you said on the low end at 10 a day, that would give you 50 a week, and then that would turn around and give you another couple thousand calls on top of it. So we're anywhere in the 8,000 to 10,000 total between the desk, and that's on the low end. I don't want to inflate that number, but I feel very comfortable at 50. Again, 50 a week will give you another 2,400 calls that originate. I mean, that's dealing with insurance companies calling. You have to have somebody being able to gather that, plus them assisting the officers with the camera system. So, in talking with the mayor, and we feel comfortable, we'll try to keep the at least a basic total for January, what our call volume is for Beaver, and then add the industry in Vanport as well. So, also been working with the emergency management coordinator Rebecca has, and he's been doing a great job, John Kowalski, and so hopefully updating the emergency plan for the borough-wide. It's been a while before somebody has been able to sit down and take the time, especially with his background, and do that. So it's exciting to get that done. That'll give us a good platform to work off of for another 10 years or so. Last thing too is some of council has wanted to continue what we're spending on our right to know submissions. So far this year, so right now we're looking at a total of 30 submissions from the same requester, and within that 30 submissions, 79 different types of records. One record could be 1 page, another record that, out of these 79 could be 700 or 800 pages. So again, more than likely, we're looking at probably somewhere around $10,000 is going to be spent by the end of February. And right now, there's 3 appeals on those right to knows that our solicitor is going to be dealing with through Harrisburg, and our engineers involved, and Andy a little bit gathering some data. So again, we're paying the 3 professionals. So we'll keep council updated. We wanted to know where we were at monthly on these. So again, by the end of February, we'll be probably around the $10,000 mark on submitting and honoring what we're supposed to do within the borough. So that's it.
I have a question. The last couple of years, have we submitted local share account grant proposals? What did we apply for, and did we get it?
Yeah, the LSA casino. Yeah.
What did we apply for, and what did we get?
So we applied for, Jim DeGore applied for the radios. We received the radios. That was $115,000 or $18,000. And then we have a grant submitted with them right now. That's for the crosswalks.
For the crosswalks. Last year we didn't get anything for 2024, right?
No.
No.
Yeah.
Okay.
Say again?
Or, I'm sorry, were the radios in 2023?
The radios were 23. No, 23.
I think they were 23.
Yeah, they were 23.
Because I saw the list for
20.
Yeah, 24. Radios were 20. Radios were 23.
Yeah.
In 24, we just applied for $130,000 for the crosswalks. And we applied the last 2 years.
Okay. My question is that maybe as part of our budgeting process, rather than the borough manager, I mean, these are useful things. I've been, the person who instigated talking about the crosswalks. Maybe we should sort of list all the grants that are out there that we want to apply for and prioritize, rather than you folks picking and choosing what we apply for. Maybe council should be more involved in setting the priorities. Just a thought as part of our
One
budget
thing
process.
is some of the stuff you have to go with, when I say experts, and I'm not one of them, is with Jim. Jim kind of has the pulse on the grants. I can certainly understand where you're coming from. Hey, we would like, of course, we're going to try to get grants for everything under the sun you can. Some stuff we don't qualify for. Once we submit a grant or start the process, they want to see our budget numbers, and they want to see median incomes and different things like that. So that balances us out. A lot of times too on these grants, it's matching money, and we dealt with that with the playground. We spent $7,000 or $8,000 to have everything engineered and get the grant submitted up here.
I'm just saying LSA doesn't require a match.
Yeah.
It's just straight money. And I noticed that a lot of the communities that got grants last year, they applied in 2023, they were awarded in 2024, even Brighton Township, a lot for stormwater and that kind of damage. And since we have a lot of properties on 7th Street and 6th Street that are feeling the effects of all the runoff from Brighton Township, that maybe we want to think about doing that this year. But we should think more carefully about all the other priorities we have and think about, what we want to do, because this is non-match money. And you can get up to $1 million.
Yeah, I think, we certainly have conversations around that during the budget process. I think we should bring those to the table, and I think your idea is a good one, especially in the 5-year plan, so that we can, look out longer and try to get those grants over course of time. I think that's a good idea, Peggy.
I mean, we've been pretty successful, and I mentioned it last time, I mean, as far as the, recycling grants, we've gotten probably $500,000. And some of the grants too, it's just very cumbersome to apply for. We just don't have the time or, to apply for some of the grants, staff's working on all these different right to knows, and that's eating up time, and there's different things, so, again, you could hire, somebody, but again, if they're not successful, you're still paying for them too, so.
And I mean, we can't hire anybody right now.
No, I'm not advocating that at all, so. All right, that's.
Okay, Mayor Tomlinson.
Yes, sir. I only have one thing to bring up, and unfortunately, the person is not here tonight, but I do want to recognize Elaine Silvaldi from the HARB. She's been a very faithful member of that HARB Commission since 2010, over 15 years, and she's not here tonight, but she had to resign, or she had reasons to resign because of commitments she has with other organizations, and she could no longer feel that she could serve on this commission. But she's been a very strategic, again, what she does in her business with the town center associates was a big asset to the HARB associates. They've done a lot of good stuff. There was a lot of rough issues that she had to help resolve, and as well as a lot of positive things. That even though that Elaine is not here tonight, I just want to make sure everybody recognizes that she put a lot of service and hard work in, and we will miss her on that committee. And that's all I have. Thank you.
President's report, I don't have any report, please, Chief.
Sean, I got a question.
Yes, sir.
I just noticed the computer. Are we streaming this? I didn't know we talked about.
Ms. Kretschmar is recording the meeting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the public's allowed to record the meeting as long as it doesn't interfere. I don't know if that's recorded, if it's a black screen, but, yeah, the public can film a meeting as long as it doesn't interfere with the overall, how the meeting operates.
I know we talked about that owl thing before, and I wasn't sure what it was.
Is there anything for the engineer? All right, solicitor, nothing. All right, we'll move on to the motion for the extension of the MOU with the committee.
I move that Beaver Borough Council approve the extension of the current MOU with the pool committee by 2 years, MOU to expire June 14, 2025.
Can I get a second for the motion, please? Thank you, Roberta. Any questions or comments?
Just one, now that the pool committee is doing public meetings, and it's on the meetings, it should be on our borough meeting schedule, I think. I know I mentioned this for their February meeting, and it didn't make it on the borough calendar.
Once they give them to us, we'll be happy to post them. They'll tell us when their meetings are, we're not sure.
Okay.
Maybe
Alex?
We're trying for the first Monday, so I think she scheduled it with,
Monty.
yeah, so I think she scheduled those meetings first, but we can definitely report more to say that,
Right, yeah, with the new group, when we had the meeting with Christie, they were trying to get some type of consistency.
Right.
As far as meetings.
Yeah, that seems to be, that's the plan, so. If you wanna make it more concrete, I think we could probably move forward.
Anything else?
Is there any terminology that should be put in here if once June 14, 2027 comes? We extend it another 2 years, or? I'm just wondering, I don't know if there's any terminology that.
We're working as an independent group to try to raise money for our community. Once that time comes, they may ask for another extension, I would imagine, so if they don't have the money raised, so.
Let's hope that's not the case, but,
I guess it depends on how successful.
Right, I think, yeah, it all depends on how successful it was and whether there was a reason to continue or at that point whether to, move forward. Hopefully the idea would be to move forward with the project. It might also come to the conclusion that, we might try to do something else. But all the money allocated for that, that they're raising for the pool committee is, primarily for the pool if for, some reason that goal is not met, that money will stay in
Okay, any others? I move forward with the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. All right, authorization to place orders for police tasers. Mr. Bickerton.
Beaver Borough Council authorized ordering and purchase of police tasers from Axon Empire Incorporated. Yearly payments to be $20,798.40 for 5 years, totaling $103,992.
Can I get a second for the motion, Mr. Hyman? Thank you. Any questions or comments?
Wanted,
Yeah, Mr. Bickerton.
just wanted to, double check that your comment was that this expenditure is within the budget, and that there is, okay, so.
Yes, we had, police vehicles that were due to rotate, and instead of rotating them in our 4-year, 5-year plan where we rotate vehicles out every 4 or 5 years, we've decided to hold on to those vehicles this year. We will use some of that money that's in the budget currently to fund this, the rest will go to the general fund.
But in future years, we'll obviously have to budget this.
Correct. So we'll have that
So
20,000.
this year's covered, future years, we need to set aside the 20,000.
Correct, yes.
So, are we getting all 20 tasers at once, or are the tasers going to be needed out over a 5-year period, like for a year?
No, they're gonna all come in as a bulk purchase to get them
Okay.
out onto the road.
Do we need 20?
Then you have 15 guys and you have another officer, part-time officer that covers the Western Beaver, so that's 16. And then you have your part-time guys that work in, that come in for the car crews, all the different events. So they don't have each full-time guys assigned their own. And then you would have 4 in reserve for your part-time guys that come out for your different events.
So they always have their own taser, you don't have like a pool of tasers that people draw from?
We did for the part-time employees, we did, but every full-time guy had their own equipment, because some of them work games, different events, different duties. In this way, they always have theirs, they're not fishing around looking for one, or a guy forgets it, puts it on his belt, sticks his vest in his locker with it.
Forgets to charge it.
Yeah, there's just a lot of different reasons.
Any others?
My question was, this is a silly thing, but is Axon Enterprise the same as the company that you mentioned,
Yes.
Taser America?
Yeah.
Their Axon is their corporate.
Parent.
Yeah, it's their division that they do their version of a body cam, which
Okay.
is like, it's on the head. Our original tasers had cameras on here, on the base, which were worthless, because anytime you deployed it, you basically seen the ground.
Floor.
They weren't really good. So they changed them when they came out with the new taser, and they put the Axon as the camera they put on the head. But there are multiple companies that do the cameras, but only one that does the law enforcement tasers. And that's another issue where, as they change and they no longer service something, you either buy from them or you don't have it, type of deal.
Yeah.
And if you don't have to take my word for it, you can Google and find out right now the useful suggested life of a taser, civilian or law enforcement model, is 5 years. And we are on a portion of our tasers, we're approaching 10 years. We have tasers in service right now that are approaching like 18 years. And we can't even we bought a bunch of parts originally so that we could baby them along. Another thing you can look at about tasers too is all the studies done on them originally, workers' compensation claims dramatically plummeted, on average 60% across the nation in law enforcement. Reason being is most injuries an officer incurs in the line of duty is physically arresting someone and fighting with them. This eliminated a lot of that tussling. You know, when you get into a fight, you're not on the mat in a ring. You're on cement against a wall. just the act of grabbing someone and falling to the ground, you might be more powerful to them than them and arrest them, but you get injured in the process. So that's saved. And then the one last thing I'll say is this is no different. Council has a duty to equip you with the emergency type of equipment that you know is going to work. If you continue to keep something in service much, much, much longer than it should be in service, then you're playing games with potential liability issues. Whenever I go to use that taser, I know that it probably isn't going to work or it's well past its date. You're subject to be sued not just by, I'm not saying the police officer would do this, but if someone has a severe injury, whether it be a malfunction in the civilian, they have a legitimate right, but so does the police officer because you gave them faulty equipment. So you open up liability issues in workers' comp. So it's not, listen, if we didn't have to, but who wants to pay this? If we didn't have to get them, we wouldn't be asking.
I mean, ours are double what's recommended, look it up, so, yeah, it's not we feel like, oh, let's just go buy something, it's bad timing, but.
And you can't even, if you could buy a cheaper brand, you can't.
Yeah, it seems like 5,000 is likely. I mean, if it's a 5-year thing, that's $1,000 a year and less than 100 a month. I don't know. Yeah, for that technology, I don't know what how you can.
For any agency,
right.
It's a lot of money. It doesn't matter. It's a ridiculous amount, but it's the price is the price.
It would have been nice to see it in the budget this past year, but if it's as long as we're moving it from one side, I think I'm okay with that. The one thing I did, it was just brought up at the last work session meeting, I believe, and there was even talk about looking at it with the COG and maybe seeing if we could do more of a community buy to help try to lower the cost. So to vote on it so quickly, it's like I did go to the State County meeting and talk to some people from COG there, and actually brought this up, talking to people and body cameras and stuff like that. And people seemed interested in a collective buying of these types of items, but we haven't met yet. Our COG's not meeting until 2 more weeks, so we can't take action on the COG. So if, and then you're saying the price went up in 30 days. So
for the tasers, the body cameras are going to have to be replaced eventually. So it's a really good idea to do that if you could get a larger group purchase for sure, because they're standard now. Everybody, and as a matter of fact, though, we were talking about grants. The body cameras are the more likely large sum of money we would get because there's multiple sources that want to fund body cameras because of the desire for transparency and everything in law enforcement. So you're more likely to get a grant on a body camera than you are on a taser because there's not as many places giving money for them.
And so there is an urgency to pass this tonight.
Well, yeah, I mean,
they're still 90 days out. If you order them now, you're not going to see them until May or June.
Yes,
So
yes, in June.
the price, what he's saying though, you're about the price. We have a bid that is good for X amount of time until we commit to it, and if we don't commit to it in time, it's subject to go up. That's all. It might not go up, but it's subject to go up, and it did this last time.
And then the last thing about we did try to get a grant for these, but we didn't get.
Right.
Is there it would be nice to have that information. Did they give us any reason why they denied the grant or anything like that? Because if there's things we can do as a community, as a council to improve our grant status, that would be helpful.
Sometimes it's random, sometimes it's just simply because they look at Beaver compared to maybe 3 other communities that are not as financially well off. So they're gonna give the grant to the ones.
I don't know if they gave a reason or something like that. I've not in the past not that debate very vague on that.
Some do and some don't.
But now the Jim feels this next go around with the casino, the LSA, we've been successful with it so far. Hopefully the crosswalk company, but Jim wants to apply this year under the LSA for the body cameras. So that's what it's another.
Which are much more expensive.
Yeah. So we're doing the best we can do.
Question on that shared PO with COG though for this. Do we think there is a material savings that could be had, or we'd have to order 100?
We'd have to order substantial.
Well, and I think since you're single sourcing this, you know, one supplier out there is not gonna cut you a deal.
Right.
You know, because
There's no conflict.
That's true.
It's a really good point, okay.
Sure, it might be a little bit more of a deal, but I don't know.
Yeah.
It'd be substantial.
It's the one item that you're against the wall, you can't really shop with. The body cameras, there's a ton of different companies and stuff, you can price shop. Most equipment you can.
I mean, they're in 80 countries, you look at, they're just a global. You look at their stock.
That's what I just said.
Yeah.
And this will, once again, we'll have to revisit this in, not we, but council will have to, revisit this in 5 years, then, is that correct? Plan on that?
No, we
stretched them.
The last two sets we've had, we've ran them out 8-9 years.
Yeah.
Until, so we're not looking at 5 years, changing, we're gonna run these ones. That'll be somebody else's problem.
Yeah, right. I don't know who's gonna have that problem.
Sean, I would like to add to what Amy said earlier about the financial component. When Dan informed me that the grant had been denied, is what opened the conversation with respect. The budget had just been approved, but then the denial came, and we're like, okay, what are we going to do? And I want to, looking back over the last 6 or 7, 8 years that we've had the police vehicle rotation that we now have, I want to say good job once again to Beaver Council for all of the strategy and the effort and everything that went into making that work. And it has been phenomenal what you've been able to do. And only just this past year when we started seeing resale values of the vehicles that we were putting back out, that we were pushing out of the rotation, where we're starting to really see the real incredible dollar value it was to the borough to be in this type of rotation. So when the conversation came up with Dan in December, I was away, and so we talked with Nick. Is it Nick that does the Nick? One of the officers helps do like a monitoring. He's been monitoring these vehicles through all of this process, and some conversation with him and then conversation with Dan is what led me to lend my thought as a financial advisor to the borough to say, yeah, maybe we can take 1 year in that window and pull that vehicle purchase out and reassign that money. So when that conversation came up, I gave a lot of thought to it, and there is a little bit of risk. I was sharing with Todd and Amy, there's a little bit of risk in skipping a year in that rotation, which we won't get into in my comment now. But from a financial perspective, I feel this is a very good move. And I think for council, speaks back to the community for all the sacrifices that the community is likewise making, seeing that the taxes were increased and everything else that we're doing our due diligence in saying, okay, how can we recognize we have this need. We don't want an officer out with faulty equipment. Remember, that was one of your main motivations when you started doing the car rotation. You wanted officers with good equipment. The same motivation is with this particular piece of equipment as well. And I feel, coming to you as a financial advisor or manager for the borough, I'm thinking this is a really good financial maneuver that gives you not only 1 year to get this done, but maybe up to 5 years to get this done, and have good quality equipment for these guys to be using. So that was I wanted you to know as the president of council that I was involved in that conversation and echoed the idea that was going to be a good idea.
Okay. Any others? Let's move forward with the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Motion carries. Right, so the next one is mine. It's the resolution to set tax collector compensation. I move that Beaver Borough approve resolution 2025-01 to set the compensation of the tax collector at $25 for each taxable parcel of real estate. I need a second for the motion. Todd, thank you. Any questions? questions or comments. Andy, I think you wanted to speak to this?
Yeah, one comment I have is to make certain that everyone does understand that the details of this motion only begin to affect the compensation of the tax collector in 2026. So that Garen has to set this up following, if you approve the motion, it's set up, but it doesn't affect what the taxpayers pay for 2025. That's already in the budget. So 2026 is when this will kick in.
If that's the case, then why are we voting on it tonight? Because we did have some comments made tonight about a different type of payment. So sounds to me that we probably should go back in the work session.
Let's do by
No, you
February
have-
The law requires by February 15th, you have to set the rate for the purposes of next year.
From next year?
Yeah.
Even so, Alex, this didn't think up a work session anywhere at all, so I'm like, this is all new to us tonight. I agree, we should look at something besides just vote on it tonight. I don't know what that means, but that's my take on it.
If you don't vote on it tonight, then you're not gonna be able to vote on it again until 2029.
Yeah, it's brand new, Garen, it's all new
Can I
stuff.
speak to that one?
Yeah, go. New to me.
So I did some analysis, being that we're on the finance committee. So way the tax is set now, last year, she made $38,119. With the tax increase, she's gonna make $60,000 this year. A $22,000 pay increase, 60%. If you set it at $25, she's still gonna make $47,500, which is a 20% increase over 2024. I'm throwing out there that it should be $21 parcel, because everybody in the office got 5% increase. That's a 5% increase at $21 per parcel, not 25. I will not vote for 25. 25 is a 20% increase. I don't think anybody got a 20% pay increase in their job. So she was asking for a $50,000. That's a 32% increase from pay of 2024. So I wanted to speak my piece of the 32% increase that was requested, and even what is in the motion is a 20% increase. Just so you know. And again, if we don't vote for it tonight, you can't vote for it for another 4 years, and she's gonna get 60,000 plus whatever. If you increase the millage next year, she's gonna get an increase on $60,000. Just so you know, that we're sitting here trying to be fiscally responsible, and we can't do anything about the $22,000. Can't do anything, it's set. But moving forward, we have to look at that.
This is a reassessment, it's a combination of everything. And where we came up with the 25, the flat 25 is, we met with Garen, along with Andy. Garen, some of the research through the county, felt that was on the upper end of the median. Was that right, Garen, 47, 48,000?
Yeah, I mean, there's a couple of other places that I had data for.
So I think
ballpark. Well, Brighton Township just increased their person's gonna be around 41,000. Columbia Borough is about 47,000. Chippewa about 49,000. Those are a couple ones that are out there. So Todd's right. I mean, by law, this has to be acted on by February 15th of an election year when the tax collector's up.
That rate is held for all 4 years.
Correct.
You can't increase it, which kind of goes along with your point. You said it's more than a 5% increase, but those 5% increases that we give are typically, every year.
Now, are we able to build that in? Or that rate has to be the same for?
No, you can set, but whatever you do here is going to be set. So you could say,
I mean, roughly
5% next year, then 5%. You could add 5% on each year if you want to do that.
Right, because theoretically 5% is $1. So you could do it 21, 22, 23, 24, right?
You could have a set figure for each particular year.
Right, so you could do 21, 22, 23, 24.
Dollars, yeah, correct.
Yeah.
For the next 4 years.
Well, not years.
No, I'm saying dollar amount.
Yes.
Okay, I thought it had to be set for the whole 4 years.
Now, you evidently calculated, how many parcels do we have?
$1,899.
Sean, I might also add, because I think this was part of Alex's question, and Dan and I kind of have a mutual apology, because last fall, this was already brought up and discussed, and we both misunderstood Garen. We thought that we had until April to decide about this, and just a week or so ago, Garen said, no guys, it's February 15th, not April 15th.
Yeah, and the rationale behind that is just like any elected official, if there's gonna be a change in the compensation, it has to be done with the next person who gets elected. So that's why you can't change, just like council can't change the amount of money that they have during their term of their council. The tax collector has to be set before they take office. That way conceivably someone would know if they in fact wanna run for that position or not.
Otherwise, we would have been talking about this in December or January. It's unfortunate that it's coming this fast, because it was, he and I both misunderstood Garen. So.
In addition, there's an office allocation, right? $500 a month.
Not anymore.
That's right.
Yeah,
That was returned. 6,000 a year came back to the borough because that lease was terminated.
Okay, how is the office being handled now?
The work is done here in the community room.
Not here.
Here, a PO box.
For my home.
And for home.
And so we're saving that 6,000. Is that correct?
Yes.
And that puts us in a bit of a pickle as council, because we're the ones who are supposed to be determining this stuff, not just approving it. Well, you know, it should be put in front of us to approve. We're the ones who should be discussing on what the percentage, whether it's a percentage or a thing, that should have been all done in this room. So.
Yeah, let's discuss one other, but well, I agree with what you're saying, but we couldn't put the motion forward with a blank number. We had to put a number in. So we put something close to what she requests. Up to you to decide.
What would it be percentage wise if we went on to a percentage?
Well, you're in that.
So I'm just, he's trying to do it.
Yeah.
You guys
You wanna hand those out? You want me to hand those out?
$25
It was
25%
during we were talking about budgets, and I think Dan maybe brought it up, but it was discussed, he gave us a heads up, like, hey, this.
We did, yeah, but that would be prior.
Yeah, prior to me, that's why I'm trying to figure out where, it feels new to me, that's why I'm trying to figure out why I should vote for it if it's just brand new tonight. That's where I am with it.
So the thinking was that we scrutinized the pay increase to the administrative staff for the borough, that the work, and aligned on a 5% increase, the work that the tax collector does is similar and very important, just as the admin and office work that gets done here. The 5% increase is commensurate to the increase that includes cost of living and a slight incremental amount. So our budget is very tight, and I wish we could go higher. I think Todd has a good idea of the scale increase over the 4 years to account for ongoing cost of living increase. That would be the same as the admin model that we would do. But since we have to vote on, we have to have this decided by Saturday, we either have to align on this motion or make a motion to change this motion, and then make a motion to vote on the new motion, and then vote on a new motion. Oh, do I have that right?
Close enough.
No, I mean, this motion, it's on the agenda, I mean, it can be amended to have a different number, that's the direction that council wants to go. Just understand that if you don't change it, then what currently is there would stay in place for another 4 years. And currently you're doing on a percentage is what currently is being done now.
Correct.
Sean, it's your motion.
2% of discount and face and 3% of penalty.
Does somebody want to change it?
Has it been seconded?
I can't read yet.
It was seconded by Tom. Yes, I would vote to change it.
So we have to,
What would the change be?
I would vote, it's a rough. I would vote to change it to $21 this year. I mean, what do you wanna do the one?
Well, the 5%'s $1, so if you went 21, 22, 23, and 24, that gives the 5% every year, a little less on the third and fourth year, because of, roughly 5%.
Yeah, I would vote for that to change it to a scaled increase of 5% per year for 4 years.
Starting off with what's?
$21
So
per
it'd
parcel.
be $21 per parcel in 2026,
Correct.
and then a 5% increase for
I
2027.
just wanna make it easy to do 21. I mean, 5%, now you're gonna get into pennies.
Which you
know,
do,
You're
but
gonna get
yeah.
into pennies.
You're gonna be.
Because really, it'd be 2205, and then
Yeah, I think it should be 5% per year to be
Yeah,
safe.
and then it'd be like 2315, then it'd be 24, rounding up 31.
just wanna make it easy.
The last year, that's it, because that's the third year since this is the first year.
Now, this would be 26.
Yeah, first year 2026 would be $21. If you do 5%, that'd be 2205 for year two. Then
Got it, I didn't have the 2205 written down.
then 2315.
Yeah, I don't wanna,
And then
I don't wanna
24.
take this cents away, I mean, if we're just doing 5%. Yeah,
So what do we end up with your salary after year 4? What do we end
Year
up?
4 is what,
1899 times-
2431 is about 46.5.
46,165.
We're lower than other, sorry.
And that's for a 4-year, and Darren's already saying that some of the other communities are at that number now, like in today's money.
Yeah, well, where'd the original 25 come from? Andy?
Now, the 25, Janet, I had a discussion with Andy, and I called Janet, we spoke on the phone, and, I said the 60 that you're getting this year, I said, there's no way because you were elected, it just so happened there was a reassessment on the timing. So we had a discussion, and I said, give me a number, where do you want to be, so I have to take something to council, we can't leave the motion blank. Talking with Andy and Garen, we came up with the 25 because it put it in that median number that Garen gave us. When I talked with the tax collector, she wanted to be at 50. So we split the difference, and our starting point for negotiation was 47.5. She wanted 50, I put Boro at 45 because of the numbers Garen had, so we went back and forth. So the 25 is just, again, the motion had to have a number, and we decided to use that number as a starting point to get the conversation going.
Not to be a devil's advocate, I don't have anything against you, Janet, but there's a $22,000 windfall this year.
Right.
So what is the position worth? Is what I'm saying. This position's been underpaid for years. There's never been a raise given ever.
According to this very quick AI search, so ZipRecruiter.
That's not accurate. You can't
It
go
is
AI.
pretty accurate. I'm in the industry of technology, so the hourly rate for tax collector in Pennsylvania ranges from $18 to $31 per hour. So this is why I was asking you what your weekly hours are per week.
And I know more, I'm fine with the way the motion is, I need more information in front of me, I didn't have that, so I'm fine with it. For the record, I'm fine with it.
We've had problems with tax collecting in the past. And that disappeared when Janet took over. We've had a quality representation for this borough from Janet. And not only that, mentioned before about saving about the allocation for office rental that we are saving. I think we ought to move forward with the whole motion the way it is, at $25 and leave it at $25 per parcel for the next 4 years.
I agree.
Well, let's move this forward to a vote then, and we'll do a roll call vote.
Mr. Rickerson?
Yes.
Ms. Good?
Yes.
Mr. D'Lo?
Yes,
Ms. McKean?
Yes.
Ms. Lauren-Kandesky?
Yes.
Mr. Heineman?
No.
Ms. Stetler? No. Mr. Andres?
Yes.
Mr. Snowden?
Yes.
Motion passes 6-2. 7-2.
Just want to remind everybody, we have to be very, very tight with this budget. We can't approve everything that comes across the desk.
We're not.
Just reminding.
Okay, moving on to request the Beaver Police Department report, Margaret McKinney.
I move that the Beaver Borough Police Department supply council with a monthly police report similar to what the Beaver Regional Police provide to their communities, and that this information is also included on the borough website.
Can you get a second? Second.
I'll say.
Questions or comments?
I just want to say a couple things. I do appreciate that y'all gave us some grand totals of call volume, but that is not the kind of exactitude that I would like to see. Police department is our biggest expenditure, and we never get a monthly report from them. All the other committees have to provide monthly reports. We never get anything from the police. Vanport, I've seen Vanport's report that you provide to Vanport with detailed information. And long ago and far away, you said that you were providing the FBI with quarterly reports of our data. Are you still doing that?
Yeah, Sergeant Hogan's, that's called the UCRs,
Then have you upgraded to the new system?
the NIPERs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, why can't we see that? It's not classified.
Then go online and look it up.
Because it's not current, Dan, and you know that. It's usually 2 years out of date. So, why can't we see this? You're giving it to Vanport for their,
So what Vanport doing, Sergeant Hogan made a report that they requested. He sat with them and they crafted, so he's giving them what they asked for in the system. He manipulated a report to see what, generated what they wanted.
Do you have a sample of the Beaver Regional or whatever, the Regional Police Force, do you have a sample?
I
of
gave
that?
it to you.
My concern by saying we have regional police in the ordinance, I think we should make our own if we're gonna do it. I don't like how the ordinance is written, for why does it have to say the Beaver Regional Police? If there's things that we wanna include in it, I'm not against having, what you mentioned, I was watching North Slickley's, the police chief just gives bullet points, similar to what you did. This is how many we had, and then they were how many DUIs or whatever, they just listed numbers. So, I don't think it has to be this packet of information, but giving us more information would be nice, but I'm concerned with how it's written.
Absolutely.
Do we have to do it monthly or can we do it quarterly?
I can report monthly and then give you the results, kind of like what we did. It's a good starting point. I'd be happy to sit with you.
I'm just curious if we got a report that was 4 pages, just like the regional police department, what's that gonna show us? What is intended to get out of this report for you or for the council?
Well, for one thing, I look at the 911 call data, and a lot of our calls are basically backing up the ambulances.
How do you know that?
Because I go online and look
You're
at
exactly right. The regional report for a year.
That's just
is
911 calls, though.
This is all regional calls. This is every 4 pages of the regional calls for a year, okay? 24% of their calls are ambulance calls.
Yeah, and that's.
So you just said that. You're exactly right. They report that. That's right. 24% of their calls are ambulance calls. And it sounded like you were downgrading ambulance calls.
No, I'm not downgrading ambulance calls, but it gives you, this is not necessarily crime data, that we're talking about. It's.
But what does that tell you? What
It tells
information?
you what the police are doing with their time.
So are you saying that it'll show you if you need more or less? Is that what it's gonna show you if you need more or less officers? Is that what it's gonna show you?
Well, it could, depending on what we see.
Okay.
But since we haven't seen anything.
I'm glad you said that.
I don't know.
I'm glad you said that. So their report, they had 5,300 calls logged on this 4-page report for 2024. 1,240 of them were ambulance, 23%. Okay? They have 17 officers, including their chief. 17. And we have what? 15. And that report he just gave you, we have 5,800 calls that Beaver did. That's just 911. That's not traffic stops. That's not walk-ins. So like Dan said, we got 8,000. And we have less officers.
Let's see
So
the
if that's what it's
documentation.
gonna tell you, then that means we need to hire 2 or 3 officers.
I just wanna see the data.
What's that gonna,
All of our decisions should be driven by data in this council.
it is. He just told you, we had 516 calls for
What specific data
January.
are you looking for?
516
How are you correlating that into police officers and pay? I mean, I do want to remind you, I mean, our police department's 24 hours a day,
I know.
7 days a week,
Yes, sir.
365 days a year.
Yes, sir.
It also brings in about $700,000 in revenue, which you never want to talk about, but it's a
No,
truth.
I do talk about
And
it.
if we take out $700,000, and along with some of the other things that you suggest, we shouldn't even, we wouldn't even have a police department.
Well,
Mr. President, may I?
Yeah, sure.
Unfortunately, I missed I was out of town and missed the last work session. As a result, I wasn't involved in any of the discussion. It's nice to see some healthy discussion tonight, but I was not allowed to have any input until this motion is here today. Now, since then, I've had discussion, and I'm not against the report. I do not like the language of this motion, as Whitney brought up. But most of all, I don't think this is appropriate motion for a report. Now, I understand what concerns me in the motion, that they have a report, which I have looked at their report, and I can't comment why that report is valuable to them, other than it's a new operation that's just up and running, and maybe that adds value to what they want. But I can tell you that I don't think it's appropriate for us to do what they do, because that's what you saw. And let me finish, please.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. I don't think it's appropriate. I don't think it's a good fit for our committee. It may be good for what they do, and I wish them a lot of success with that. But I think, first of all, I would have liked to have some input, number one. But also, I think there's other ways to do this that we need to, and I think it was a good start tonight. I like having an oral report, which we do get a police report every month. And maybe we can expand upon that with some numbers. The report that they use, I really don't think you can look at all those different numbers, but at the end of the day, all they do is tell you a volume of numbers. So I just think that we could do a lot of things better, and we can spend our time on more important stuff than to try and add more customized reports that don't add any value to the community.
Well,
And I'm not finished yet. So, I'm sorry, Margaret, this
go
came
right
up.
ahead, please.
This came up, and I feel I should have had some input on this. Anyway, because of the way this is phrased, I don't think it's appropriate use of a motion, and I respectfully request that the council not approve this, and let us work as a team to come up with the best way to do things, not what somebody else suggests.
Now, can I
They do
respond
in
to
another
this?
community.
Can I respond to you now, Tom?
I hadn't finished that.
Oh, keep going then.
Okay. I'm wrapping this up, but you keep interrupting me, okay? I let you talk, I let everybody talk.
Please.
I am just asking this I take this seriously, as we all do. We're doing what we think is right for this community. It's work as a team, not as fighting each other. Now, we all have different ideas. That doesn't mean yours is wrong or mine is wrong, but we gotta work together, not in a way like this. I'm done.
Okay, I just want to respond, because you weren't at the work session. When I handed the example over, I made clear that this is just an example of the kind of report that I would like to see from the Beaver Police Department. Doesn't have to be exactly like that, but I thought the fact that she had all the categories listed could be a good template for us to start from, and for Anna to use. Now, I'm perfectly happy if we want to get the FBI quarterly report. I'd be happy to see that. If you want to hand that to me, that's fine too. Put that out. You don't have to do anything. You're submitting it to the FBI. Just distribute that. You don't even have to put it on the website. You can just hand it out to council.
We can look at all this stuff, but let us look at it. Don't do this motion.
Yeah, I was happy to second the motion, just for the discussion part of this.
Thank you, Alex.
But that being said, I have to agree with a lot of what the mayor had put forth. This can be done without being a motion. We can do this just as a collaborative effort. And the mayor does have some oversight on the police force, so I think he needs to be kind of included in it. And I just think it needs to go back to work session and maybe, we can talk about it more there. I don't think it should die here. Even if it does not pass, I think we can still talk about it. Talk about it during work session and maybe come up with a good thing that everybody kind of agrees on. I wouldn't mind seeing more reports from every single committee, more hard reports from every single committee. That's on this council.
So can we make a motion to rescind this motion?
You can rescind it, or it could go to vote. She would have to rescind it. Ms. McKean would have to rescind it, but, or it could go to vote. That'd be the options.
Well, I would be happy to rescind it if we are going to have a serious discussion at a work session that would result in some type of
discussion is serious.
police report.
You know, Margaret, the only thing I find, I don't use the word I'm using, but just really interesting, that you're going on completing your second term on council, and since day one, I see you around town, I see you different, you never say, hey Dan, can I talk to you? Be happy. Miss Good asked for a report, Bob, I'd sit down and I'd be happy to work, but you've never just said, hey, I want to ask you. It's always accusatory and confrontational. Anybody in this room that knows me, you'll see with the exception of a few people when you're complaining about the police, because we handle our business. And we take our business seriously, as we do with our neighbors, Vanport Industry. We treat them right, they have contracts, it's harmonious. But you never just said, hey, Dan, Mr. Delo asked for a report, I'd have it for him quick. But you've never just said, hey, can I talk to you? Mayor, can I talk to you? And just sit, like we're having this discussion now. It just never happens with you. We would be happy to work with you, but you don't ever approach it that way. That's all I have to say.
Mr. Chairman.
Can I make an appointment?
Mr.
Yes, we can talk about it.
Yeah,
Okay.
please.
I will.
I've been intrigued since I saw this motion, and the thought that I have is that I think the general impression of the motion is reasonable. I mean, I think we do want to be, transparent. I do think we need if council members don't have the information they're looking for, I think it's very reasonable to ask that the police department supplies that information. What I am also concerned about is that a motion like this tends to give the impression that there's a conflict between council and the police department, that we're trying to tell the police department what to do. I think that what I've heard tonight from the mayor and the police chief, that they're quite willing to provide information that council wants, and that can be done in a much more informal setting rather than committing it to something that would be codified. And so I don't think we're looking for codification at this point in time. I think we're looking for, a general discussion on how to provide improved reporting to council.
Any others? Okay, let's move
Would
forward.
you rescind?
I will be happy to rescind the motion pending an appointment with Jan Magar to discuss the information in greater detail with the collaboration of the mayor.
I would appreciate that. I'm open also, I've always been open, but.
We're gonna cover this in a work session.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a public discussion about this. This isn't just, I want all members to have.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, can I attend that meeting? 'Cause I'd like to
No,
attend.
no, we're gonna do it in a public session. We'll do it in the work session. That's what they're for. So we'll have that discussion in public.
Okay, but I thought I was gonna get the.
Well, you work it out with Dan. I'm saying
Oh,
as
okay.
president of the council, I'm
Okay.
saying that's gonna be on the agenda to
Okay.
discuss.
All right, then I will formally rescind the motion.
So, I need
And that
a,
kills my second right now.
Yeah, so at this point, motion adjourned.
I need a motion to adjourn. Todd, let me, you can do the third. All in favor?